Number two, how have you aided your enemy? How have you participated with him? So you say, I belong to Jesus. I don't participate with Satan. You can belong to Jesus and participate with Satan. Peter did, the leader of the disciples. Jesus looked at him on one occasion and said, "Get behind me, Satan." Was Satan possessing Peter? No, but he was influencing Peter, and Peter was somehow in that moment complicit with his enemy, and Jesus saw it. I'll give you a strange analogy again, back to one of my earlier points, that when I talk about spirit beings, some people get very confused. So I like to talk about human beings to illustrate a point of how people work, beings work, and then we can apply it to spirit beings as well. So let me give you a human analogy that then has a spiritual implication. You ever heard of something called the Stockholm effect? Get the dates right here. August 23rd to 28th, 1973. In Stockholm, Sweden, a bank was open doing its business, and thieves rushed the bank, seized it, took it over, and held the teller and the bank workers hostage. According to the report, they strapped dynamite, explosives, bombs on the bank workers, and they ushered them into a vault. And they held them for 5 days. 5 days. And they threatened their life, but eventually they were redeemed, to use the language of the Bible. They were liberated. They were delivered. They were set free. And what happened was, some of the people who had been held hostage and captive, they were in that torment condition that I explained at the beginning of the sermon, they actually defended their captors. Do we have to testify against them in court? They're not all bad people. You know, what? And the psychologists, the sociologists, and the caseworkers, they're all very confused. They strapped explosives to you and held you captive for 5 days. How could you defend them? How could you become sympathetic toward them? And they were so mesmerized by this that they created something called the Stockholm Syndrome. They said that sometimes people who are in abusive relationships, they become sympathetic toward, affectionate with their captors. See, this is true in human relationships. Let me tell you this as well, having been in pastoral ministry for over 14 years now. It's true in spiritual relationships as well. See, because what happens in a situation like that, someone is in the position of Lord or God or King or ruler. And when they're up in that position, they literally rule as Lord. They'll decide, do you live, do you die? Do you sleep or stay awake? Do you eat or starve? Are you free or are you in bondage? They literally are like a God. They rule over you. And so what you try to do is appease them. You try to become friends with them or make them happy or not set them off. And then once in a while, they'll do something that is seemingly nice for you, and you think, okay, they're not altogether bad. This is why police will tell you that the most dangerous call is a domestic violence call. Cops get a call, they'll go out, let's say, for example, they go up to the door, and a woman answers the door, and she's covered in tears and sweat and snot and blood. And what happened, ma'am? Well, he assaulted me. Who did? Well, my boyfriend who lives with me. Okay, well, thank you very much. We need to speak to him, perhaps arrest him, turn your back on the woman, and she'll shoot the cop. Say, why would she do that? Why would she defend her abuser? Because the human heart is prone to deception. And Satan is a deceiver, so he deceives. See, human beings are prone to deception. You're a human being. Ergo, you're prone to deception. And we can look at the Stockholm Syndrome, or we can look at a battered woman and say, that's crazy. How could you not see this as an abusive, tormenting relationship? Yet we all lose perspective in our own life, and some of us think Satan isn't that bad, sin isn't that evil, darkness isn't that dark, and God isn't that good. I talked to one woman who was a battered woman, And she said, well, he wasn't always bad, and I think maybe he cared about me, and he did do some nice things. I said, like what? She actually said this. She said, well, he let me live. He's not supposed to kill you. But for her, not being killed was a gift, so she thought that that was affection. See, Satan is a murderer. Satan is a liar. Satan is a deceiver. Satan is an abuser. Satan has people in a condition of torment. And then we, because of our own self-deception, we can begin to view him in a position as Lord to where we actually become sympathetic toward him and complicit with him. Remember the story of Patty Hearst? Maybe remember that story? She was taken hostage for 2 months. She was held against her will. And then she participated in a bank robbery, helping her captors. People ask, why? Because of the proclivity of human beings to be deceived. You know what? Some of you have been taken captive by Satan. You're being tormented by him. You're in an ongoing abusive relationship, spiritually speaking. And you know what? You're participating with your enemy.